Kiyotaka Ayanokoji starts his journey at the Tokyo Metropolitan Advanced Nurturing High School, a school that has been established by the Japanese government to nurture the young people who will support the country in the future. It boasts a 100% employment and college entry rate, and with thorough, state-directed teaching methods, it spares no effort in pursuing the nation's desired future. Later on, the entrance ceremony begins with a speech from the Student Council President, Horikita Manabu. He explains that everything in this school is decided based on merit, and advises the newcomers to work hard. Afterwards, Kiyotaka is placed in Class 1D, and during the introductions, he lazily introduces himself. Just then, Chabashira Sae, their homeroom teacher, shows up and announces that there will be no changing of classes in this school. She'll be responsible for the Class 1D students until they graduate. While explaining the special rules of the school, she reveals that their ability to leave campus and contact the outside world will be limited. However, the school offers a variety of facilities, and everything, including entertainment, can be found here. She then explains the point system of the school, through which the students can buy anything they want. These points are allotted on the first of each month, and a single point is worth 1 yen. She reveals that 100,000 points have already been allotted to each student for this month, leaving them surprised. However, she informs them that the school judges them based on merit, so they should be careful with their spending. Later, during the exploration, Kiyotaka encounters his classmate with an arrogant personality, Horikita Suzyun, and gets surprised to see her buying cheap stuff. As time passes, Kiyotaka notices that everyone has started spending their money quite lavishly. He then meets another girl in his class named Kikayo Kushida, an extrovert. Kushida instantly befriends him and expresses her wish to become friends with Suzyun. She politely asks him to assist her, and he reluctantly agrees. Later that day, Kiyotaka invites Suzyun to a cafe where only women congregate. However, when Kushida arrives to join them, Suzyun releases Kiyotaka's true intentions and decides to leave. As April comes to a close, Kiyotaka notices that all of the students have spent their money extravagantly while ignoring their studies. On May 1st, the students in Class 1D did not receive any additional points, leaving them perplexed. SAE then explains that their allowance is based on performance evaluations, and since they were all careless the previous month, they will not be receiving any additional points. She refers to them as a bunch of knuckleheads who will have to make do with what little money they have. SAE reveals the S system, in which all first-year students have been divided into 4 grades ranging from A to D. The school assesses them in real time and then assigns numerical values. However, she explains that if they can earn more points than Class 1 degrees Celsius, then they'll be promoted, while Class 1 degrees Celsius will be demoted. SAE informs them that the upcoming midterms are the best opportunity to increase their scores. Conversely, she also warns them that anyone who receives a failing score on their midterms or finals will be expelled from the school, leaving them shocked. During the free period, Yasukurata gathers everyone and advises them to take everything more seriously from now on. Later on, Suzyun treats Kiyotaka to an expensive lunch to discuss the current scenario of their class. She reveals that Harada has arranged a group session to prepare for the next text. Everyone except Sudo, Ike, and Yamachi, who had the lowest scores, accepted his invitation. To avoid losing points, she asks Kiyotaka to devise a plan to bring those 3 to the study group, and he agrees. Initially, he fails to convince them and decides to ask Kushida for assistance. She happily accepts his invitation, and later they somehow manage to succeed in bringing the incompetent guys to the library. However, Suzyun's strict attitude pisses them off, and they immediately leave, with Sudo claiming that he'll become a professional basketball player. At night, Kiyotaka goes out for a drink and overhears Suzyun arguing with her brother, Manabu. Out of anger, he calls her a failure and prepares to assault her, but Kiyotaka intervenes. Manabu then attacks him, but Kiyotaka dodges his every move, leaving him surprised. He asks him if he practices any martial arts, to which Kiyotaka replies, piano and calligraphy. Manabu then reveals that Kiyotaka is the guy who scored 50 in every subject during the entrance exam and the recent quiz as well. He asks him if it was intentional, but Kiyotaka replies that it was just a coincidence. Manabu then tells Suzyun that he's surprised to know that she finally made a friend, but she denies it, and he leaves. In the aftermath, she awkwardly apologizes for the inconvenience and asks him the same questions as Manabu. However, Kiyotaka doesn't give her a clear answer and questions if her cold behavior is the reason she ended up in Class 1D, but she fails to answer it. When the midterms are administered, the whole class performs remarkably well, with some of the students earning the highest first-year scores overall. The scene shifts to 3 days before the exam, in which Kiyotaka observes Sudo being provoked by the students of Class 1C. Out of anger, he rushes to assault them, but a girl from Class 1B, Hanami Ikono's, intervenes and tells them to stop the violence. However, Kakeru Ryuen, the bully, defends himself by saying he's the victim, but she doesn't believe him. Hanami then threatens to call security if he doesn't stop, so Ryuen and his gang walk away. Meanwhile, Kiyotaka asks Sudo if he has time to study, but he refuses and goes to practice basketball instead. Later on, Suzyun gives Sudo a summary of her notes to pass the upcoming exam, leaving him shocked. She explains that she wants him to continue pursuing his aspiration of playing basketball at a professional level. 2 days before the exam, Kiyotaka invites Kushida for a secret meeting with an upperclassman. Kiyotaka asks him to hand over the previous midterm exam paper in exchange for 15,000 points, and he accepts the offer. Later on, Kushida starts worrying about getting caught, but Kiyotaka calms her down by revealing that what they did is included within school rules. However, he requests that she take the credit when everyone in their class manages to pass the exam, and she instantly agrees. 1 day before the exam, she hands out the past papers to all the students in Class 1D. On the result day, it is revealed that everyone passed the midterms except Sudo, who failed the passing threshold by a single point. He becomes devastated when SAE announces that she'll issue his notice of expulsion after class. Kiyotaka then confronts SAE, questioning her if equality in society exists, and she replies negatively. He agrees with her and claims that the word equal is a mere lie. Surprisingly, he offers to buy a point from her to save Sudo from expulsion. She accepts but demands 100,000 points in exchange, an amount Kiyotaka is unable to pay. Just then, Suzyun shows up and offers her 50,000 points in addition to Kiyotaka's own 50,000. Fascinated by her classmates' unity, SAE agrees to sell Sudo's point and save him from expulsion. Furthermore, she reveals that no Class D has ever advanced to a higher tier in the history of this school, but Suzyun expresses her determination to reach the top. Later at night, a little celebration party is held in Kiyotaka's room, and Kushida questions him about how he was able to save Sudo from eviction. To satisfy everybody's curiosity, Kiyotaka gives all the credit to Suzyun, leaving her speechless. After the party, Kushida leaves but forgets her cell phone, so Kiyotaka follows her to return it, only to find her real psychotic personality. Just then, she threatens Kiyotaka that if he fails to keep it a secret, she'll tell everybody that he tried to rape her. She then forcefully places his hand on her chest to use his fingerprints as evidence. Afterwards, she coldly asks him if she can trust him to keep her secret, and he nods. Suddenly, she takes a deep breath and switches her personality, while Kiyotaka wonders who she really is. The results of a recent quiz in Class 1B have increased their overall points thanks to Hanami's study group. 2 girls express their gratitude by giving her a warm hug, and Hanami secretly wishes for her whole class to reach Class 1A. Later on, Kiyotaka meets Suzyun and Kushida in the elevator. After interacting with Kushida, he starts reflecting on their previous incident. As they leave, he notices that Suzyun is still reserved with Kushida, and suddenly Hanami shows up. She asks Kushida and Kiyotaka if they have received their points, but they are unable to answer her question. Later on, SAE reveals that the provision of points to first-year students has been delayed. However, the moment the problem is resolved, the points will be distributed. During the evening, Hanami privately calls out Kiyotaka, only to inform him that someone's going to ask her out right now. Surprisingly, she shows him a love letter and explains that she wants to turn that person down without hurting their feelings. Consequently, she requests that he pretend to be her boyfriend. But just then, Chihiro arrives. Seeing Hanami with Kiyotaka, she instantly begins to cry, and he realizes that she's the one behind the love letter. An emotional Chihiro asks Hanami if Kiyotaka is her boyfriend. However, before she answers, he reveals that they're just friends. He advises Hanami to be honest about her feelings because confession of feelings takes a lot of courage, and then he leaves. Shortly afterwards, Kiyotaka notices a teary-eyed Chihiro running away while Hanami shows up. She reveals that she has friend-zoned Chihiro and thanks Kiyotaka by saying she owes him a favor. During class, SAE discloses that basketball members from Class 1 degrees Celsius have filed a complaint with the school against Sudo. They claim that after practice, he attacked and injured them with no apparent provocation. Meanwhile, Pseudo explains that it was self-defense. However, Miss Sae says that there will be a discussion with Class 1 degrees Celsius in the presence of the student council. If Class 1D manages to find a witness, Pseudo will be saved. Otherwise, severe actions will be taken against him. Unfortunately, all of them fail to find any witnesses, and later on, Hanami joins them in the investigation. Thanks to her, a student from Class 1B, Kanzaki, receives an anonymous email about the past of Ishizaki Daichai. However, when Kiyotaka assists Hanami by sending points to the anonymous person, he notices something weird on her phone. But she instantly takes it back. As they leave, he wonders how she was able to get such a huge number of points. Later on, Suzyun reveals that Sakura, her classmate, witnessed the fighting incident and captured everything on her camera. The following day, Kushida tries to talk to Sakura, but she runs away and breaks her digital camera in the process. The following day, Kushida and Kiyotaka accompany her to the electronics store to get her digital camera fixed. Fortunately, it is covered under warranty, but when the shopkeeper tells her to fill in her details, Sakura becomes nervous. Therefore, Kiyotaka steps in and fills out the form with his personal information instead, leaving her flustered. Later on, during coffee, Sakura apologizes for the inconvenience, and Kushida leaves to freshen up. After an awkward silence, Sakura opens up by asking Kiyotaka for his opinion regarding Pseudo's case. Surprisingly, he advises her not to burden herself with a decision she might regret. Rather, he tells her to testify for her own sake, and Kushida returns. They call it a day while Kushida tells Kiyotaka she'll visit his room later. At night, she shows him pictures of Sakura and reveals that she is an internet personality. Their conversation gets interrupted by a text from Sakura saying that she'll help in Pseudo's case. The following day, the hearing conducted by Manabu and the secretary of the student council, Takabana, begins. Both sides give their testimonies regarding the fight, but the initial ruling goes in favor of Class 1 degrees Celsius. Just then, Kiyotaka tickles Suzyun to trigger her senses since she's been zoned out for a while. She then questions the circumstances of the fight and claims it's impossible to get severely injured during a 3 versus 1 fight. Afterwards, Suzyun presents Sakura as the witness, who states that she saw the students of Class 1 degrees Celsius initiating the fight against Pseudo. However, the proof only shows that she was present during the brawl and doesn't show any hard evidence to back up Pseudo. To end the matter, the teacher of Class 1 degrees Celsius proposes a compromise of a 2-week suspension for Pseudo and a 1-week suspension for his students. Surprisingly, Class 1D rejects it, and an argument begins that is soon ended by Manabu. He claims that one side is offering false testimony, and ends the hearing by announcing that the final decision will be made tomorrow. Moments later, Manabu calls Sakura a masked liar and attacks Kiyotaka, but he effortlessly evades it, leaving everyone surprised. Sakura receives some creepy messages from an anonymous stalker and succumbs to fear. On the other hand, Suzyun and Kiyotaka investigate the staircase where the fight took place. Suddenly, she develops an idea and decides to try something. Later on, Kiyotaka arrives in the classroom and accidentally startles Sakura. He expresses his gratitude by thanking her for helping with the case and saying that he trusts her. A blushing Sakura then thanks him as well and reveals that there's been something on her mind, but he receives a message from Suzyun. Consequently, Kiyotaka prepares to leave while telling her that he'll be happy to hear from her later. Meanwhile, the 3 boys who accused Sito arrive near the staircase under the impression that Kushida called them. To their surprise, they encounter Kiyotaka instead, who states that he wishes to discuss something with them. The trio, however, prepares to leave, but Suzyun stops them and points toward the security camera, leaving them shocked. They realize that they're going to get expelled, but Kiyotaka reveals that there's still a way to save both classes. Suzyun simply tells them to withdraw the complaint so no one gets punished. However, Ishizaki prepares to make a call, and she knocks the phone out of his hand, calling him a pathetic man who can't decide for himself. With no option left, Ishizaki and his group agree to withdraw their complaint. The scene then shifts to Sakura, who senses that someone is following her. On the other hand, Kiyotaka meets Hanami and promises to pay back the points he borrowed yesterday. However, she expresses her astonishment and wonders why such an intelligent guy like him was placed in the lowest section. Out of humbleness, Kiyotaka credits Suzyun for everything and suddenly receives a call from Sakura, but it gets interrupted. Meanwhile, Sakura is held against the wall by her obsessive stalker, who turns out to be storekeeper Kusuda. She tries to grab her phone, but he overpowers her and starts harassing her. Just then, Kiyotaka shows up and captures him assaulting a female student. Kusuda, out of fear, tries to run away, but Hanami, having brought security, blocks him and apprehends him. In the aftermath, Kiyotaka reveals that he tracked her location using his cell phone. Sakura decides to live an ordinary life and removes her glasses while thanking Kiyotaka for saving her. On the roof of the school, Sae questions Suzyun about the person who was responsible for class 1 degrees Celsius withdrawal, but she doesn't answer. Afterwards, she advises Suzyun to understand as much about Kiyotaka as she can if she wants to reach class 1A. She claims that the D section is for people with defective aspects, and according to her, Kiyotaka is the most defective one. In the hallway, Kiyotaka stumbles upon Manabu, who asks him the same question as Sae regarding the withdrawal. However, Kiyotaka again says it was Suzyun's plan, and Manabu questions Takabana if there's an open position for the secretary, to which she replies positively. Surprisingly, he then offers the position to Kiyotaka, who refuses by expressing his wish to live a normal life. After their departure, Kiyotaka finds Suzyun glancing at him with a serious face. Somewhere else, Ryuen orders Albert to beat up Ishizaki and his gang for withdrawing the complaint without his permission. He later runs into Arisu Sakeyangi, the leader of Class 1A. Fueled with anger, he reveals his intention of crushing everyone to get to the top, while Sakeyangi asks if he can truly make it happen. Suzyun, on the other hand, confronts Kiyotaka, asking him who he is as he dwells on his past. After snapping back to reality, he tells Suzyun that he'll help her get into Class 1A but strictly warns her not to pry into his life. During summer vacations, Kiyotaka constantly calls Suzyun to visit the swimming pool, and she reluctantly accepts his offer. However, a night before the pool, a group of students from Class 1D, including Kiyotaka, Sudo, Ike, Yamachi, and Satomura, gathered up to discuss the upcoming operation of peeping the girls in the dressing room. Later, during the trip, Suzyun examines the current situation of girls in her class and includes Hanami as well. On the other hand, Satomura communicates with the boys from the school's general store through a transceiver. Meanwhile, Yamachi, disguised as a janitor, goes into the girls' changing room after everybody has left to install cameras. However, he starts having trouble, so Satomura orders him to retreat and instead sends Ike to continue the operation. Surprisingly, Ryuen and his gang show up to check the changing room, so Sudo arrives to distract them for a while. Just then, Sakeyangi and her gang arrive as well, initiating an argument between them and Ryuen. Additionally, Manabu comes to alert everyone that they're still on school grounds. Stuck in a desperate situation, Satomura signals Kiyotaka for his help. Consequently, he tells Suzyun to assist him, so she diverts everyone's attention by giving a speech to reach Class 1A while Ike escapes the changing room. Later on, Suzyun tells Kiyotaka that she removed all the cameras in the changing room and sabotaged the operation. However, it is revealed that Kitaoka intentionally used her to ruin the operation because he didn't want to turn his back on the boys. He then asks her if she had fun with others, but Suzyun replies negatively, and Kiyotaka pushes her into the pool. She also pushes him back, and everyone joins in to have fun. At night, she receives a group from Kiyotaka with the other students and starts smiling. All the first-year students are taken on a luxurious cruise ship for a class trip. During a play, Miss Sae informs Kiyotaka that a few days ago, an anonymous person contacted the school and asked to expel him. She then offers to cover for him if he shows a willingness to reach Class 1A, but he instantly refuses and prepares to leave. However, she warns him that if he doesn't cooperate, he'll lose all his freedom at school. Out of anger, Kiyotaka grabs her by the collar and asks if she's manipulating him. Meanwhile, Sae remains composed, and as he releases her, she states that her life is already full of regrets. Kiyotaka then goes to the bow of the ship, wondering if it's alright to renounce his freedom. The following day, Ike musters up the courage to confess his feelings to Kushida but only asks her if he can address her by her first name, and she happily agrees. On the other hand, Kiyotaka notices that Sudo has become a bit attracted to Suzyun. During lunch, Tachuka Yahiko, a student of Class 1A, insults the Class 1D students, prompting Sudo to start a brawl. However, Kohei Katsuragi, the representative of Class 1A, intervenes and stops the assault while telling both of them to behave. Later on, Harada invites Kiyotaka to hang out with his group, but he politely refuses. Much to his surprise, Harada then asks him to serve as an intermediary between him and Suzyun, but Kiyotaka doesn't answer while Harada receives a call and departs. Soon after, Kiyotaka meets up with Suzyun, who asks him about the destination and the real reason behind this extravagant trip. He replies that the ship is headed for a boarding house on a South Sea island owned by the school, and advises her to be cautious. Just then, Ryuen shows up and confronts Suzyun about setting up cameras in the changing room. He arrogantly starts flirting with her while another student from class 1 degrees Celsius, Ibuki, arrives. She tries to assault Ryuen but is turned down by Albert. Meanwhile, Suzyun claims that class 1 degrees Celsius might be on the verge of collapsing. The scene then shifts to Sakayangi, who reveals her plan to investigate some students. Later on, Sakura practices a dialogue to ask out Kiyotaka for a date, and when he shows up, she backpedals. Instead, she requests that he help her overcome her lack of interpersonal skills and grabs his hand. But Kushida arrives. Out of embarrassment, Sakura instantly runs away, and Kiyotaka is about to leave as well, but Kushida transforms into her psychotic personality. She stops him only to reveal that she can sense he's wary around her. Kushida then reverts to her normal self and leaves. The next morning, Sae explains to the students that once they reach the island, their school IDs will be confiscated. In exchange, they'll wear wristwatches, and those who remove them will be penalized. Mishima, the teacher of Class 1A, then informs the students that they will be spending 1 week together as a group surviving on a deserted island, leaving them shocked. Class 1D examines the sources they have to maximize their chances of survival. The group leader, Harada, reveals that they have been given special 300 S points to buy useful things on the island. However, what's surprising is that any S points they have left after the test is over will be added to their class points. Then he discloses a list of things through which they can either lose or gain bonus points. Afterwards, a debate begins between Yukimura and Harada regarding the usage of points, while Suzyun realizes that the test is quite complicated. As the group ventures into the forest, the 3 blockheads of Class 1D go on their own to roam around the island. During a stop, 9 students, divided into teams of 3, proceed to find a base area where they can set up camp. Rokusuke Konji utilizes his extraordinary athletic ability to outpace Kiyotaka and Sakura. Soon, they lose sight of him and stumble upon a cave. It is revealed that these caves are called spots, and they are worth 1 bonus S point. However, only the class leader has the authority to declare their possessions. In addition, if a class manages to guess the leader of other classes, they'll be awarded 50 bonus points. But if they're wrong, 50 bonus points will be deducted. Suddenly, Kiyotaka notices Katsuragi and Totsuka exiting the cave, so he instantly grabs Sakura to hide them. Out of suspicion, Katsuragi proceeds to search the bushes but doesn't find anything and leaves with his classmate. Later on, Kiyotaka and Sakura, while looking around the cave, discover that it's been possessed by Class 1A. Afterwards, they catch up with their group members to report back on everything. Harada then reveals that Sudo, Ike, and Yamachi have found a spot near a river. After arriving there, the group discusses whether they should claim the spot and use it as a base camp or not. Therefore, to avoid any issues, the group decides to make Suzyun the new leader, who can claim the spot after every 8 hours. On the other hand, when Ike guarantees the purity of the water, Harada sends Kiyotaka, Sakura, and Yamachi to look for resources. Later on, the trio encounters a wounded Ibuki from Class 1 degrees Celsius, and invites her to stay with them until she gets better. After returning, Ike sets up a campfire and surprises everyone with his camping experience. The group then discusses how to spend their S points in the future. Sometime later, while Suzyun is conversing with her group about what to do with Ibiko, Kushida arrives and offers her food. Suddenly, Sudo screams and calls Konji a selfish brat. Yukito then reveals that Konji wasn't feeling well, so he went back to the boat, and now Class 1D will lose 30 S points. On the other hand, Konji himself is fine as he climbs the anchor chain of the ship while staring at the moon. In a flashback, a young Kiyotaka is taking a test in a white room, but suddenly a mysterious man arrives, telling him he should use his powers. Back in the present, he and Suzyun go on to survey the situation of other classes. Soon, they meet Hanami, who displays cooperation and shows them the condition of her class's camp. Suzyun gets impressed by the disciplined nature of Class 1B, and concludes it's an upgrade as compared to Class 1D in every way possible. Later on, the duo straightforwardly proceeds to infiltrate the base camp of Class 1A. Suzyun attempts to take a look inside, but Katsuragi shows up and summons the security forces. He warns her that irresponsible actions can lead to war and advises her to avoid any trouble. Moving on, Suzyun and Kiyotaka reach the base camp of Class 1 degrees Celsius to meet Ryuen. The duo is surprised to see that the students are treating the survival test as a summer vacation under the leadership of Ryuen. Adding more to the ongoing situation, it is revealed that Ryuen has spent all the S points of Class 1 degrees Celsius for the sake of entertainment. Furthermore, he claims that the loss of S points won't result in any negative marking. Consequently, their class will not be penalized for their actions, nor will there be any deduction of their private points after the test ends. Afterwards, Suzyun asks him about Ibiko, and Ryun claims she was punished for disobeying his orders. Later on, Kiyotaka tells Suzyun that Ryun's 0-point strategy is quite impressive and similar to Konji's. On the third day of the test, some unknown student breaks into the girls' tent in Class 1D and steals the bag Ibuki to search for something. Afterwards, on the fourth day, Kiyotaka and Sakura continue to explore the campsites of other classes. However, they are surprised to discover that everyone except Ibuki has abandoned the test. Meanwhile, Hanami informs Kiyotaka that Sakayangi and Katsuragi are opposites, which is why they're fighting for leadership. On the fifth day of the test, it is revealed that Karuizawa's underwear has been stolen. Consequently, Harada conducts a bag search and finds it inside Ike's bag. Ike claims that he's innocent and forces Kiyotaka to claim possession of the underwear. Later, when the girls demand a pat down, Harada finds it inside Kiyotaka's pocket but doesn't reveal the truth. During the evening, Kitaoka asks why Harada defended him, to which he replies that his reputation will be damaged the least because Karuizawa is her girlfriend. Due to trust issues regarding the underwear incident, the girls of Class 1D decide to separate the camps of boys and girls. Feeling insulted, the boys refuse to help them move. However, the girls only demand Harada's help. Suzyun then objects that Harada is also a boy and can't be trusted, so they should add another trustworthy guy. In this way, not only will the manpower double, but the boys will also be able to keep an eye on each other. She then nominates Kiyotaka, as he's inoffensive and invisible enough in terms of perversion, and all the girls agree. Later on, Kiyotaka and Harada are setting up the tent, but a girl calls Harada for his help, so he leaves. Shortly afterwards, Ibuki confronts Kiyotaka, asking him who he thinks was responsible for the theft. She reveals that Pseudo suspects her since she's an outsider, implying that no one trusts her. However, Kiyotaka surprises her by saying that she's trustworthy enough, and Ibuki starts blushing. She then thanks him for being honest and leaves. Before dinner, Kiyotaka and Suzyun sit by the campfire to discuss the current situation of the test. To the surprise of Suzyun, Kiyotaka says that he is aware that she has been ill since the test began. Nevertheless, she claims that she's determined to hold on until the end. On the sixth day, Class 1D scatters to collect food while Kushida tells Yamachi that Kiyotaka and Suzyun have grown close to each other. Meanwhile, Kiyotaka asks Suzyun to show him her leader card because he wants to confirm if Katsuraga's card is real or fake. However, after seeing it, he's still unsure about the truth. Yamachi interrupts their conversation by smearing mud on Suzyun's hair in an attempt to elicit a response from Kiyotaka, but she instead throws him to the ground. Later on, while she's washing herself, somebody steals her leader card, and she secretly informs Kiyotaka. After some time, a fire breaks out at the camp, and the survival manual gets burned in the process. Consequently, the trust level between Class 1D students drops even further. However, after knowing that Ibuki has run away, everyone starts suspecting her. They start searching for her, and luckily, Suzyun manages to find her. She realizes that Ibuki was the one who stole her card. However, she attacks Suzyun despite knowing that violence is prohibited. Due to her bad health, Suzyun gets defeated, and Ibuki gives the card to an unknown student who requested it. Ibuki contacts Katsuragi through a walkie-talkie and informs him that she has secured Suzyun's leader card. Meanwhile, Kiyotaka finds a wounded Suzyun and advises her to withdraw from the test because of her deteriorating health. She refuses and blames herself for the loss of Class 1D. When she finally loses consciousness due to exhaustion, Kiyotaka takes her to Miss SAE, and Suzyun drops out. On the final day of the test, the students of Class 1D are cleaning the mess while Kiyotaka informs Harada about the situation regarding the leader's card, leaving him perplexed. Nevertheless, he hands him a form and instructs him to write the names of other leaders. On the other hand, Class 1B decides not to guess any leaders since they already have enough points. At the assembly, when the special exam is declared over, Ryun shows up, leaving everyone surprised. It is then revealed that Class 1 degrees Celsius secretly forged a pact with Class 1A's leader, Katsuragi. In a flashback, it is shown that Ryun intentionally sent Ibuki as a spy in Class 1D, and Kanda in Class 1B. Afterwards, he quickly spent 100 S points to make everyone think that his class had withdrawn from the test. In reality, he had a deal with Katsuragi to inform him about the leaders of Classes 1D and 1B in exchange for points. Consequently, he ordered everyone to withdraw from the test and stayed on the island himself to guide Ibuki, Kanda, and Katsuragi. After successfully executing his plan, he told Katsuragi about the leaders. However, back in the present, the results are revealed, and Class 1D turns out to be the winner with 225 points, followed by Class 1B with 140 points, Class 1A with 120 points, and Class 1 degrees Celsius with 0 points. On the other hand, Suzyun is shocked and wonders what happened. Later on, she encounters Kiyotaka and questions him about their win. Meanwhile, it is revealed that Sakayangi sabotaged Katsuraga's plan by using one of her allies. Kiyotaka explains that just before the end of the test, he became the leader of Class 1D. However, Ryuen and Katsuragi named Suzyun as the leader and failed. Furthermore, he reveals that he was aware of Ibuki being a spy and intentionally made her steal the leader's card. Additionally, he also saw Katsuragi holding a card in his hands, Ibuki's, which was suspicious because Katsuragi was a cautious man. Therefore, he was able to surmise that Class 1A's leader is Yahiko. As for Class 1 degrees Celsius, he knew that Ryuen, being the leader, was still on the island because he had a radio similar to Ibuki's. As far as Class 1B goes, he decided not to erode their alliance. Before Suzyun can question him further, she gets surrounded by her classmates cheering for her and crediting her for their win. Kushida, however, catches up to Kiyotaka and admits that she hates Suzyun because she's the opposite of her with no hidden side. Just then, Kiyotaka receives a text from Miss Sae telling him to meet her in the theater. There, she reveals that she's aware of Kiyotaka's past and that his father was the one who issued a request for his expulsion. Sae then asks him what he plans to do next, and Kiyotaka replies that she already knows. Later, during the night, it is revealed Ryuen made a contract with Katsuragi that Class 1 degrees Celsius will receive 20,000 private points from each student of Class 1A each month until graduation. As Kitaoka is about to exit the theater, Suzyun confronts him, and it is revealed that he told Harada that she was the one behind Class 1D's success. Out of gratitude, she declares him her ally and starts blushing. However, as she continues talking, Kiyotaka tells himself that he doesn't acknowledge her, Kushida, and Harada as his allies. For him, they're nothing but mere human tools to accomplish his goal. It turns out that Kiyotaka's time in the White Room has made him an emotionless man who's willing to use anyone to achieve his purpose. He believes all that matters is his winning in the end. Who will reach the Class 1A? What's the truth behind Kiyotaka's past? Find out in the next episode, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel.